Hi, this is Gary Rosenzweig from FlashGameU.com, and today I'm going to show you how to create dynamic buttons. This is something that I always look to do in any sort of programming environment I'm working in, is to have a way to have buttons that look the same but have a different label on them, and have it done very easily. Now, you of course can use the component that comes with Flash 9, but I like to make my own buttons, and one way to do that is to simply create a movie clip. I'm going to call it dynamic button. You can use a simple button. The problem with a simple button is that if you want to put a piece of text inside of it, you can't use ActionScript to access that piece of text and change it. So you'd be stuck with basically creating a button for each different button you want. So if a menu bar with 5 buttons, you'd have to have 5 different ones. With a movie clip, you can create one movie clip and have it many times. I've got it on the stage here once, and I've just got it set just to be jumped on the stage, set to button 1 as the name. And then what I do here in the script on the frame is I've got some code, a couple things here. This is the pretty typical code for any sort of button that you would create. It doesn't really matter in ActionScript 3 if it's a movie clip or a simple button. You can assign an event listener, in this case a mouse click, and have it call a function. Here's the function, and it has to accept the event but doesn't need to do anything with it, and it's just going to throw something in the output window. This is the same if we're using a simple button, using a component, doing all sorts of different things. You would do this to create a button. What's different is this. I'm calling a function called setLabel, a function I've created, and I'm calling it with this word in there, testing. So the label of that button should be testing. Sure enough, if I run the movie, if I test the movie, it shows testing there. Now, the way that is done is if we actually look at the movie clip there and look at the information about it, we see that it's called dynamic button, it's class dynamic button, export for ActionScript, and that means it's going to look for dynamicbutton.as, which of course we've created. Dynamicbutton.as does a bunch of different things. It looks rather long here, but a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with the label. What has to do with the label is this setLabel function right here. And all it's going to do is take a string, and it's going to set visibleLabel.text to this label. VisibleLabel is a dynamic text field I created inside of the dynamic button. Let's go take a look at that. Click on that. There's the inside of the dynamic button. See, it's got 3 frames here. On the first layer, or actually layer 2 it's called, I've got a dynamic text field right here. And you can see a little better. And that's called VisibleLabel. So when I just put the word button in there, just as a placeholder. So that's what's being changed by setLabel. And that's all it is. And that's why I'm calling it here in the main movie like that. So if I had a second button, I'd say button2.setLabel is something else. So the disadvantage of using a movie clip instead of a simple button is we don't have all those nice rollover and down states that we have with a simple button. But we can get some of those things back in a movie clip just with some simple ActionScript. So let's take a look again inside of the movie clip here, and we've actually got 3 frames. This second layer here actually has this blue box. If I go to the second frame, I can see it's actually this olive box, and the third frame is actually a bright yellow box. So it's 3 different states for the button. I've actually labeled these here normal for the first frame, over for the second frame, there'll be a rollover state, and down for a third frame for the down state. And that's all we need to know from there. If we go into dynamicbutton.as, we see a bunch of different things that address that. For instance, we add a bunch of listeners here. We have on the mouse over event, we execute the function rollover, then roll out for the mouse out, mouse click down for mouse down, mouse click up for mouse up. So we look at those functions, and we could see something simple. For instance, on rollover, we're going to either go to the down state or the over state. Now that's going to depend on whether this has been clicked before. Proper button behavior is that you click down on the button. Let me demonstrate. You roll over the button and it changes the rollover state. You click down on the button and changes the down state. You click up and of course it goes back to the rollover state. If you move off, it goes back to the normal state. Now it behaves differently if you actually click down, it goes to the down state. You can move off and it's in the off state. Go back over, it goes back onto the down state because you haven't released the mouse yet. and then I'll release the mouse. So basically, when you roll over, it depends if you've already clicked down and you're still pressing down on your mouse or not. So we're going to take that into account by remembering if we're in the middle of a click. So on mouse click down, we're going to set clicked equals true and go to the down state. At that point, if they roll out, it'll go to normal. And if they roll back in, it'll go either to down if they've clicked, or if they haven't clicked, over. So just the different ways a button work. If you look at any user interface and almost any OS, all the buttons work this way. And this handles basically, these functions here handle all of the ways that the button can operate. The only thing it doesn't do is doesn't do any action if mouse click up is hit. That's left for that other event handler that we talked about that is there and would be there in the main timeline. We'll look at it again. This part here. So basically, we're using the mouse event click to handle that, and what the button class is handling is things like over, out, and up and down. So they work well together. So back to the class here, we do a couple other things, nothing big. We go ahead and use button mode and mouse children. We set them to true and false respectively. This makes the cursor change to a hand. That's all it really does. We set clicked equal to false to begin with, and we go ahead and have the rest of these functions here. And that's all we really need. Now, as an example, we can basically place a second button on the stage there. We look to the properties for this. It's button 1. We change this one. We make this one button 2. We can go in and add this. Add something. Button 2, let's set it to another button, and let's add the event listener to go to button 2 clicked. Button 2 clicked, we'll do that instead. And when we run this, we see testing and another right there. There it goes with an exclamation point. There it goes with an @ symbol. So we can create a whole bunch of buttons. And of course, you can also modify this to actually create the buttons on the fly by ActionScript. But the idea here is to be able to visually lay things out before you run an ActionScript. Because if you're creating a visual interface, you probably want to lay all the pieces out, background, borders, and all that. So I'd like to be able to do that in an interface type of application. So there you go. So I'm going to put this code up with the post here so you can see the class. Actually, I'm just going to post a link and put the two files up in a zip file. And so you can check it out for yourself. So this has been Gary Rosenzweig with FlashGameU.com with how to create very simple but useful dynamic buttons. Thanks.